After days of political ferment and tumult, which led to Pakistan's Prime Minister Imran Khan's ouster in a midnight no confidence vote on last Saturday, Islamabad has a new sheriff in town, Shehbaz Sharif. Sharif takes over at a time when Pakistan's economy is in the doldrums and its currency greatly weakened. This even as Imran Khan is drawing large sympathetic crowds at his rallies, where he does not shy of describing his opponents as thieves. His Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf Party, or the PTI, has decided to boycott the National Assembly for the foreseeable future. To understand the implications of this virulent uncertainty in Islamabad, Mayank Chaya report spoke to Anwar Iqbal, the Washington correspondent of the Karachi based Dawn newspaper and one of the most astute observers of his country's politics, Anwar Iqbal. First of all, thank you as always for your time. You're always generous with me, Anwar.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
It strikes me while reading some bits about Shehbaz Sharif that he used to call himself Khadim-e-Ala as Chief Minister of Punjab.
Hmm.
And he has a reputation of being a workaholic. And it also strikes me that your Eastern bigger brother likes to
Hmm.
call himself Pradhan Sevak, and he also has a reputation as a workaholic.
Well, I mean, after all, they are from the same region, so
Yeah.
it's no surprise that they share something. And the two well, and the bigger brother also had good relations with the family. But
Right.
yes, Shahbaz is a workaholic. He does sort of like when he was a chief minister, he did a lot of things. I mean, modern Lahore. Whoever visits Lahore says that it is very green, it is very beautiful. So he did contribute to making Lahore what it is now. He also is actually built a good road system and metro
Yeah.
line and everything. So yeah, he is good in those things.
How do you see the dynamic playing out now that you mentioned that Prime Minister Modi had a fairly strong relationship with his elder brother, Nawaz Sharif? Do you see that equation happening between Shehbaz Sharif and Narendra Modi?
Yeah, I mean, they probably would have or should have some sort of good feelings for each other, but because you remember, he also came to attend a family wedding, and the Sharif remembered him with fondness and everything. But this government is here for a very short period, and I think they will not get much of a chance to get into foreign affairs. They'll be focused on holding the elections. See the way PTI MNAs
Yeah.
or members are resigning, and soon half of the house will be empty. And the idea is to force them to hold an early election, which is something that PMLN does not want, and the PPP also does not want. There was a time, actually, see the way the things are moving so fast. When this movement against the PTI government started, PPP wanted immediate election. Sorry, PMLN wanted immediate elections, and PPP wanted late elections because they thought that late. It was Zardari who proposed Shahbaz's name as the prime minister, and Nawaz Sharif opposed it initially. Even later, he agreed. So Zardari's idea was that if they stay in power for 1.5 year, uh, they will not be able to do much anyway because the international economic situation there is little Pakistan can do to bring oil prices or to deal with the effects of the COVID-19 pandemic and other things. So the price hike will continue to go up. The inflation will continue to rise. People will get poorer, and very soon there'll be a strong resentment against PMLN, and PPP would be able to cash on it. But now it seems that both PPP and PMLN do not want another elections. They would, if they can, want to stay in power for a year and a half and then hold the elections because Imran Khan surprised everybody by arranging the show that he did yesterday, people saw the unexpected emergence of sympathy for him across Pakistan, even in a city like Karachi, which otherwise was ruled by uh, MQM, but you saw that they had the biggest rally in Karachi. So I think now they would be scared to go to an early election, and they would want to delay it as much as possible. And while the PTI will try to force their hand into holding it now, so I think they'll be too busy with this electoral politics to do anything substantial.
I see. Don't you think you telling me about Imran Khan's emergence at that Karachi rally again, and a wave of sympathy, as it were? Is there a prospect at all of the opposition's move backfiring, having ousted him?
Too early to say. Too early to say because you see, a lot of things can happen between now and the next election.
October 23, yeah.
Yes, but I, I mean, for now, Imran Khan is popular and he's trying to cash on it, and not, a lot in Pakistan, the establishment also has a very strong say in these things. So we'll have to wait and see what the establishment wants. This man, the present head of the establishment, General Bajwa, developed differences with Imran Khan, as most of our generals do with the prime minister.
Right.
So he probably would not want him to return, but he is retiring in early next year, and so see, or in November, I think. Sorry, not early next year, in November.
This November, yeah.
This November, yeah. So, I mean, we'll have to see whether he gets an extension or not. If he gets an extension and he's there, then the establishment may support this government, the government that took over today, and they may help them in delaying the elections. And if we have a new general and if he sympathizes with Imran, as people say that Imran still has a lot of support in the military, then the situation will change. It is all
Right.
too early to predict anything.
Right. But I'm sure Shehbaz Sharif, who apparently has a better relationship with the army than his brother had, don't you think he can make an expedient move and continue Bajwa as the boss at the military headquarters, and perhaps ensure that he also remains perhaps longer than people might expect?
I think that should be a logical thing to do for him, uh,
Okay.
and he would want to retain him. But let's see. I mean, it's still too early to because
Right.
army, although plays a key role in political matters in Pakistan, but it does not want to be seen as doing so. They do not like their chiefs to become sort of public figures, and Bajwa's role is being discussed everywhere. The people have been chanting slogans against him in these rallies and everything. And I was reading one report which said that they requested Imran Khan last night, actually after last night's rallies, to discourage his supporters from bringing army into it,
I
etc.
see.
So I I don't know. There must be pressure building up from all sides. So it will not be as easy as it seems. It is that too is a very difficult decision. And then you see there are problems within the family that Shehbaz Sharif will have to
Right.
face because Nawaz Sharif always saw him. I mean, yeah, he was considered a good person to run Punjab, keep the largest province on Nawaz Sharif's side, but they always believed that the center belongs to Nawaz Sharif. He wanted to be in the key role, and then he is grooming up his daughter,
Mariam, yeah.
Mariam, to take over. And but what Shehbaz Sharif has done is something that must be uh, ringing alarm bells in London because he's not only he has not only taken over the prime ministership, but has also brought his son. as a
I
chief
see.
minister of Punjab. So the, so now there is a threat for both Nawaz and Mariam in Punjab and Islamabad. So we will see how long Nawaz and Mariam will sort of uh,
Right.
tolerate this central role for Shabazz and Hamza.
Speaking of sibling rivalry, what are the prospects of Nawaz Sharif returning from London after his 2 year exile?
First, they will have to do some sort of. They'll have to go to the court and get some decisions changed. They will file, I think, appeals against previous judgments. And now that Imran is gone, they would hope that they'll be able to persuade the courts to reconsider those decisions. And once those legal hitches are removed, then I don't see why Nawaz Sharif will not return.
And but he remains barred from seeking public office, or you think that might change too?
That he has been barred. I mean, people have been barred before too. Uh, Even Ghulam Mustafa Khar was forgiven, who had said that he would come to Pakistan on Indian tanks.
Right.
So, I mean, in politics, there's nothing that does not change.
Right. Speaking of exiles, etc., it's remarkable that here is a sort of still a struggling democracy, which is seeing on a regular basis leaders going into exiles, coming back, going, coming back. How long do you think that can go on? Because even Shehbaz Sharif was packed off by Musharraf.
See, the thing is, I mean, we blame the generals for everything, but our politicians have also been very, fickle-minded, and also sort of intolerant, very intolerant actually, not just sort of very intolerant. And it is the politicians who actually, from day one, they start their efforts to bring down whoever takes power. I
Hmm.
mean, they have never in, and that is probably a part of our culture. I faced this, and all others who were sort of active in student politics have faced this. That the day you win an election, your opponents, the first thing in Pakistan is, unlike in other democratic countries, they say that we do not accept the results. The elections have been rigged, and we do not recognize the new president of the union, or the new
Right.
president of the railways, or the new president of Pakistan. We do not recognize him, and they just start a campaign to bring him down. And when you have this kind of attitude, naturally, the army is not going to be a silent spectator, because when they see you tearing the country apart. I mean, I'm not justifying the army's intervention, but you create room for the army, space for the army to interfere.
Right. Uh, Changing gears a bit, what do you read into Imran Khan's somewhat outlandish claims that there was a Western, rather American conspiracy to overthrow him? Is there anything there, or it's just an absurd claim?
Well, I mean, I will not call it a conspiracy. As you know, you are also a seasoned journalist, and you've been living in the United States for
Yeah,
long enough to know these things. And I've been in Washington also for almost 20 years now, actually more than 20 years now. See, there are several levels of communication between an embassy and the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, or what they call the State Department here. And it happens in every country. It happened in Islamabad a lot. There would be, say, of course, an official written statement that the embassy or the Ministry of Foreign Affairs exchanged, and there were official meetings where you had note takers and everything. But everywhere else, it happens in Washington too. But those formal meetings are just for formal statements. They only sort of exchange policy matters. A lot of things are said in informal meetings, knowing that you cannot be blamed for saying these things.
right.
These are sort of classified as personal thoughts of an individual. I mean, they leave a room for what is called plausible deniability. That you
Right.
say it and you deny it too, and said, "No, I didn't say it. I didn't mean it because we were just having a discussion, a casual discussion, and off the cuff remarks." But those are, it is true that those are not of the cuff remarks, but that is a channel that has been used for centuries, and all governments, including previous Pakistani governments, respected that. You have to respect that because that you, beside everything else, your embassy is also a listening post. And if you start creating disputes over what diplomats discuss in private meetings or informal meetings, if not private, informal meetings, then what will you do is that they will stop having these meetings with you. They will start avoiding you. And one very major purpose of having an embassy will will die. I mean, the
Right.
one major person is to know the thinking of your host government. You see, and that is what it was. This man came for a farewell meeting or invited him. I think it came for a farewell meeting where he must have said these things because I know Asad Majid is a very he is a career diplomat, PhD in law from a Columbia graduate, a PhD in law, knows several languages and everything. He's very scholarly and he will never cook up things, and he will also, and he definitely knows the difference between a formal communication and informal communication. So he sent a cable detail as he was required to, detailing what happened in this informal meeting.
Right.
And the PTI government decided to use it as a political stunt. I think it was just a stunt. It was, there was no formal threat, but these things must have been said in that
Yeah.
case.
But in that context, don't you think Imran Khan's rather effusive visit to Moscow in the midst of the Ukrainian invasion might have, in a sense, outraged the Americans?
He did actually. He said so. I mean, Donald Lu, who is supposed to make
Yeah.
those remarks in that meeting, he said so in a congressional hearing too. And he did not just mention Pakistan; he mentioned India as well. He mentioned Sri
Yeah.
Lanka, Pakistan, and now you see in the latest voting, even Nepal and Bangladesh abstained. You see,
Right.
so and India abstained again too. India not only abstained but gave a statement as well. So there, and he said that he's concerned. He said, although we got it approved by an overwhelming majority, but there are far too many countries that they did not approve our policy on Ukraine. So they are concerned, and they have expressed those concerns. But to the extent that they actually would want to bring down the Pakistani government, I doubt it, because there are other ways of bringing pressure on the Pakistani government, and American pressures have always succeeded in achieving what they want. And the Americans have never went to that extent in Pakistan because they have enough influence within the country to make them do things that they want done. So, I mean, I don't see it as a serious threat to anything.
I see. How do you see China looking at this tumult in Pakistan?
Chinese have also been dealing with Pakistan for the last 75 years.
Yeah.
So, and they are used to it. Everybody, as India is. So, so things keep happening in Pakistan. There are, or will, I mean, there never is a dull moment in Pakistan. Something is always happening. If it is not politics, then cricket. If it is not cricket, then terrorism. If it's not terrorism, religious differences. If nothing else, then we have floods and things like that. So
Yeah.
Pakistan has never been quiet. So the Chinese know what is happening, but the Chinese are obviously they watch Pakistan very closely, and they would want to reduce American influence in Pakistan, and so this could they would see this as an opportunity to do
Mm.
that, to sort of increase their influence and to reduce American influence. That this creates an opportunity because whether it is right or wrong, this claim that the Americans sent a letter saying that they want to topple Imran's government has been accepted by the people. It is now popular demand that Americans must stop interfering in Pakistan's internal affairs and everything, which suits China.
Right. If the Imran Khan's party, PTI, Pakistan Tehreek Insaf, refuses to take part in the National Assembly for a prolonged period, what happens then? Because he has called them thieves and he refuses to sit with thieves. That those are his sort of words.
I think what he did today was a mistake, but he must have a strategy. Well, I think he could have been much more effective staying in the parliament. See, he has about 150
Five.
members in the
Yeah.
parliament and the single largest party. I mean, what PPP has 50 plus, 57, 56, something like that, and they have 84 PMLN, and
Right.
he had about 150 parties. So even if you take out the dissidents, about 20 or 30 of them, he still would have had about 120, 130 members. So that would have been a very strong opposition, and they could have really created a lot of troubles for the government for as long as it is in power, and that would have kept them in the news, and
Yeah.
it would have helped in winning the next elections too, because there are advantages to be had as members of parliament. It is more difficult for the police to arrest all of them, keep them in jail, because there is a requirement that forces the speaker to demand that these people be allowed to attend uh, assembly sessions. And in the past, people have been allowed to, including Zardaris, and others. They were in jail during the sessions. They were brought especially to the National Assembly to attend the meetings. So that could have really been a continued political drama that would have benefited PTI. But I don't know why he decided to do that.
So, I mean, do I take it that till at least October 2023, they will just not be part of the National Assembly anymore until the next elections?
That's what they
Well,
said.
yeah,
That's what they
yeah.
said.
That's remarkable. That means without any credible opposition in the National Assembly, the current coalition government can pretty much
Do whatever they
railroad
want.
every. Yeah,
They can
and
even
get
make they can even make constitutional changes.
and there'll be no opposition at all.
There
Yeah,
will be no opposition, because they will have. I mean, you need 2/3 majority of
right,
the existing members, which they
right.
will have now.
Which I mean,
And
they have a brute
they,
majority in the absence of the PTI.
yeah, they can change election laws as they wanted. Uh,
But this is serious in the sense. Is there a possibility at all they cannot revoke their resignation? Can they?
they still can.
I mean, they can still come into the assembly if they
Yeah,
want.
because some of them, only a few of them have actually tendered
Okay,
it given it to the speaker. They had just sent their resignations to Imran Khan,
okay,
and so now although he will look very stupid if he withdraws the resignations. I don't know what he wants. Some people, what some people are saying. You know how we in South Asia tend to believe in conspiracy theories. So
right,
people are saying that he did so because he was afraid that at the 11th hour, the establishment may switch its support to Shah Mahmood Qureshi and get him elected the new prime minister. So creating a rival
right.
leadership within the PTI. So that is why he did that. But
I
that, I
see.
think, is just another theory. But
Yeah.
yes, people are talking about that.
How powerful or popular is Qureshi?
Qureshi is not very popular, but he has a solid base in southern Punjab, and his family has been around for forever. For
Hmm.
almost 800-900 years. They've been the prime priestly family in that area. Their grandfather was an advisor to Balban. Remember the Turkish ruler of
Yeah,
India.
right.
So they have been around since those days, or even longer.
Hmm.
So they have a lot of influence, but he's not a very popular
I-
figure.
Just last couple of things. How do you generally rate Imran Khan's performance? Because there was a great deal of bluster. There was a great deal of whining. What did he achieve in his tenure?
He could have done a lot more than what he did. I mean, he did do certain things like, the health card was a good thing. The forestation was a good thing. He dealt with the COVID-19 quite well. I think everybody opposes his strategy of refusing a lockdown, a total lockdown. He did sort of partial lockdown and did not stop. Did not close all offices and factories and everything. They would close down a particular area if the disease increased in that area, then reopen it and all. And it succeeded. He was able to control the thing. Uh, but again, instead of blaming him, I would say that it was obvious in the arrangement that was made for him that he would not be able to do much because you see, although his was the largest single party, but he did not have a majority, and then he had to be supported by the establishment to get the parties that made it possible for him to get a majority, like MQM, like Balochistan Awami Party, like PMLQ, and all those parties. These are the parties
Right.
that always go with the establishment because too small to survive on their own. And
Yeah.
so the establishment brought about 20, 30 people for him. And in return, he had to accommodate a lot of people that were not actually working for him. I mean, they were not doing anything for him. So the team he had was very ineffective.
I see. And finally, Shehbaz Sharif is taking over a country which has extremely weak economy, rather weak currency, and general uncertainty. What do you think he might do to immediately stem the rot?
I don't know. I mean, see, he has taken over in very difficult circumstances. He does not have enough room to play around. The economy, the way it is stuck. For instance, say one example that there's been an old demand in Pakistan that we should come out of this arrangement with the IMF, but
Yeah.
the economy will not allow him to do so. Okay, and if you are in an IMF arrangement, then those arrangements come with certain conditions, and those conditions are only intended to ensure one thing, that you can return the money that you borrow, and therefore they force you to raise, say, electricity and other sort of mm, electricity rents and raise prices on certain commodities, uh, not to make capital investments, focus more on sort of containing the government's expenditures and
Right.
everything. That means giving less facilities to the people. So I think Pakistan will have to continue with that arrangement. Similarly, and what can he do to force it? I mean, he cannot end the war in Ukraine, and as long as the war in Ukraine continues, the oil price will stay high, and that is a huge drain on Pakistan's resources.
Right.
That is the biggest factor now.
Right. On a note of levity to end, Mariam Nawaz Sharif has said that if Imran Khan likes India so much, he should go to India. And there are those in India who tell some others to go to Pakistan. I was quite amused by that.
Well, I don't, Mariam, I don't know, is a non-serious person. I She always says things that actually land her father into trouble, and then he and Shabad and others explain that this is not what she meant and all. So I think she has been kept there as somebody who just is focused on countering PTI's propaganda rather than saying sensible things. And so she that probably is on purpose. So that you should have somebody who can give a befitting response to PTI's propaganda. That is her purpose.
Yeah.
So I will not take that very seriously.
I cannot let you go without having a comment or two on Bilawal. Where do you see Bilawal Zardari Bhutto's future?
That is another problem for this government because, see, there was a talk that he may, they want him to be the foreign minister. But would he want to be the foreign minister? Would he want to be able to? Would he want to be placed in a position where he is required to defend the foreign policy of the Shahbaz Sharif
Yeah.
government, saying that my prime minister Shahbaz Sharif said this, my prime minister Shahbaz Sharif said that. You see what happened in the parliament when Bhutto said something, Bilawal said something, but Zulfikar Ali Bhutto and PMLN people started chanting Nawaz Sharif, Nawaz Sharif. You see, so that there's a lot of bad blood between the two, and it will be it will it will be very difficult for
Hmm.
PPP to stay out of this arrangement because naturally they are a partner, they're the second largest partner, but they will also not want to be seen as part of this new government. So I don't know what will the
In case it fails.
in case it fails, and not just that. I mean, they're because they see that, see, in Pakistan politics is sort of uh, stays in the family, and like Bhutto's, Shahbaz Sharif has a family that can do politics in Pakistan. Imran does not. His kids live abroad and they're not going to come to Pakistan. So Zardari sees PMLN as a real threat in Punjab, not PTI,
I
because
see.
he thinks that Imran is already an old man. How long is he going to be there? And once he's gone, uh, PTI will disintegrate and we will get back because a lot of PTI supporters went from PPP. So we'll get
Right.
back our supporters. But PMLN, he knows, is will stay. I mean,
Yeah.
they already have produced two young leaders, Hamza and Mariam, who can take over, and it will continue to be a threat for PPP. So
Yeah.
I think for PPP, it's a very difficult situation. And
The
again,
PPP. Yeah. Go
and
ahead, sir.
what will they do with Maulana Fazlur Rahman? I mean, he wants to be the president.
Yeah.
Okay, president has no power, and he will be there for just for a short period. But having him as president, president gives a very wrong signal to the rest of the world.
Yeah.
You know, that will not be seen as a good development anywhere else.
Right.
It will be interpreted as an increase in the influence of the pro-Taliban religious scholars in Pakistan.
Right. The PPP's fate to me seems from a distance like the Congress parties. They seem to have been marginalized quite a bit, despite
Yeah,
the
but they
fact
have
that
one advantage, unlike the Congress Party does in India, that the Congress Party also lost UP, it's a
right.
stronghold, but PPP still has Sindh with it.
Yeah, true, true. No, so no, it's interesting how the politics of the two countries mirror each other
Yeah,
so
because
frequently.
they eat the same food, listen to the same music, and